Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, police clash with Kenyan protesters angry over changes proposed by a controversial finance bill. Shortly after the standoff, Nairobi walks back on some of the planned tax hikes. Also, this month, Burkina Faso suffered one of its deadliest jihadist attacks. The country's poorly trained soldiers struggle to respond to the growing threat, meaning that hundreds of people flee every week, uncertain whether their security forces can keep them safe. We hear from our regional correspondent. And all aboard, 1,400 passengers get a free ride from Dar es Salaam to Morogoro on Tanzania's first electric standard gauge railway. But first, Kenya's changed its mind about bringing in multiple tax hikes that have sparked fierce protests. Hundreds of demonstrators turned out near Parliament on Tuesday, angry about changes proposed by a finance bill that would have hiked the price of bread, vegetable oil, and the cost of sending money electronically. Following the tense standoff, Nairobi announced several amendments to the proposed legislation. Clarice Fortuné has more.
Scenes of chaos as scores of people gather near Parliament to protest against a draft budget, including new tax hikes. The decision seen as a further blow to their buying power.
Taxes are high. My mom just died from cancer, and we can't keep raising taxes on cancer treatments. You had them raising taxes even on donations. Women have no taxes are being taxed. We can't even afford diapers for the kids anymore. There are no vaccines in the hospitals for the children.
Police fired tear gas and made arrests as protesters took to the streets. The government eventually relented in part a few hours later.
We have listened to the view of Kenyans, and we are all in agreement that there are two things that we must do. One of them is that we need to protect Kenyans from increased cost of living, and therefore the proposed 16% VAT on bread has been dropped.
Several other taxes, such as those on mobile payments and vegetable oil, were also removed from the draft budget. The government considered these tax measures necessary to restore the country's room for maneuver in a difficult economic climate. The revised text is due to be debated this week and passed before June 30th.
Now, Zimbabwean opposition leader Jameson Timber and dozens of his supporters appeared in court in Harare on Tuesday. Timber and the other young members of the CCC were detained over the weekend, allegedly for holding an unauthorized political meeting. Their lawyers claim that they were assaulted whilst in custody.
Broken limbs and others writhing in pain, youths belonging to the main opposition movement in Zimbabwe walked into court this morning. They were arrested on Sunday. 79 of them were arrested for gathering with the intent of causing public violence. Their lawyers allege that the youths were assaulted by the police before they were bundled into a police truck. They have been in custody for the past 48 hours.
They were assaulted by the police at the time of their arrest. Some of them were forced to jump into a dirty swimming pool.
What this entails is that the regime is hell-bent on stopping voices of dissent. The regime is hell-bent on stopping the opposition. It's as if the opposition is now a banned organization. It's as if the CCC and the entire opposition forces are banned in this country.
Similar laws have been used in the past to ban rallies and other political gatherings, which they say is being used to create a one-party state in the country.
Look now at some news in brief. In Niger, an armed group opposed to the country's military leaders has claimed responsibility for vandalizing a section of the country's crude oil pipeline. It extends for nearly 2,000 kilometers between the Agadem oil field in Niger and Benin. And it's meant to be loaded under a $400 million deal with oil giant China National Petroleum Corp. The Patriotic Liberation Front claims that Sunday night sabotage was aimed at forcing Niger's Chinese partners to cancel the export deal. Lawyers for Taylor Thompson, one of the 3 Americans amongst 51 defendants on trial in DR Congo over an alleged coup bid, say that he has been tortured in police custody. Armed men launched the attempted takeover bid on May 19th before being subdued by security forces. Lawyers for several of the defendants have called on the military court to declare itself incompetent to try their civilian clients. There is an urgent need for more cholera vaccines across Africa, and stock shortages are of great concern. Ahead of a Paris summit aimed at ramping up African vaccine production, the Gavi Vaccine Alliance has warned that a resurgence of outbreaks of the disease across the continent is putting pressure on supplies. Climate change is one of the factors driving the higher incidence of disease, as is displacement caused by conflict. Gavi vaccinates about 60% of the world's children every year and is hoping to get manufacturers to rethink their pricing. Now, this month, Burkina Faso suffered one of its deadliest jihadist attacks on the country's army. Its poorly trained soldiers often struggle to respond to the growing threat, and hundreds of people are fleeing every week, uncertain whether their security forces can keep them safe. Our regional correspondent tells us more.
The June 11 attack, in which more than 100 soldiers were killed in Mansilla, reflects the mounting extremist threats in Burkina Faso. Al-Qaeda-linked group JNIM claimed responsibility for the deadly raid on the military post and shared videos displaying scavenged weaponry and at least 7 captured Burkinabe soldiers. The army struggled to combat jihadist groups congregating in rural areas. Over half the country's territory is currently out of government control, including towns and small villages around Mansilla.
We heard that people were attacking villages near ours. We decided to leave with my stepbrother to come here to Ivory Coast. My children are still very young and we couldn't leave them at home when we were out working in the fields. I haven't heard from our family members who stayed in Burkina Faso. I've no number to call them or even a SIM card. I came here with my children and my primary concern is to take care of them. I'm a lone woman. I can't do much.
President Ibrahim Traoré has not yet spoken about the Mansilla attack. In Burkina Faso over the last decade, thousands have been killed by armed groups and more than 2 million displaced. Niger and Mali are struggling with the same threats, and the unrest undermines stability across the Sahel.
Well, 14 years after post-electoral tensions led to the deaths of at least 3,000 people, and echoes of the frustration and pain caused by the violence remain. The country's made big gains in terms of its economy and regarding security, but for those who lost loved ones in the arrest, they're still seeking redress. The reconciliation process is a long and fragile one, and an important part of that is the return of the remains of some of those killed. This episodic handover does leave victims' families struggling with mixed emotions. Our team sent us this report.
Room of Ivosec, the Abidjan morgue, emotions ran high. 13 years after the end of the post-electoral crisis, these families will finally be able to bury their loved ones. Several ministers have come to offer their condolences to the families and give speeches of peace, urging national reconciliation.
May their deaths not be in vain. Together, hand in hand, we must work to make our country a haven of peace.
The first restitutions took place in 2013, just after exhumations of mass graves. Then nothing happened until March 2023, when 49 bodies were returned to the west of the country. The relief is immense for families like Guinel.
I'll be able to bury my daughter with dignity, and each time I'll be able to go to my daughter's grave knowing that my daughter's buried here.
Daughter Rokia was killed in March 2011 when she joined supporters to demonstrate against then-President Laurent Gbagbo.
At the entrance of the Banco roundabout, right there, here. When the women came, the tank came out, and there it shot at the women.
This stele was inaugurated last March to pay tribute to people like her.
People told me they shot women. They shot women. So I started looking for my daughter. When I came, I found that the shell had torn out her throat.
But grey areas still remain even after 13 years.
What are the results of the autopsies? What did they give? What has this contributed to the search for truth, which is a pillar of transitional justice? The questions remain.
In 2015, some military officers were dismissed after a trial for these murders.
Well, Tanzania is on the right track in taking its transport infrastructure to the next level. Its first electric train is in circulation, a milestone project that's key to broader plans to boost economic opportunities across the region.
After decades of waiting for a modern electric train, Tanzanians finally got a transportation that runs on time. The state-of-the-art electric and signaling system transported 1,400 passengers from Dar es Salaam to Morogoro, a 300-kilometer distance in just 2 hours, for a journey that usually takes an entire day.
It was nice, a normal journey, and we made it without being tired.
I really enjoyed it. It was my first time to experience the electric train.
The railway took 6 years to build, with companies from Turkey and China, creating more than 30,000 jobs. Electricity train workers, cabin crew and drivers were sent to foreign countries to learn about safety and maintenance issues. Female employees were given priority, making 80% of the staff.
As long as we set our mind in what we want to accomplish, we can do it. Be it engineering or any work that society passes as a man's job. It's about perception. Women can also do it.
This milestone project is part of Tanzania's broader plans to enhance connectivity and economic opportunities across the region. After Kenya and Tanzania, other East African countries like Uganda, DR Congo, and Burundi are also hoping to jump on this bandwagon.
That's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, though. Do so again. Till then, take care.